the galaxy had long since forgotten humanity. Their name lived only in fragments of myth, whispers in forgotten archives, warnings carved into the stone tablets of civilizations that had risen and fallen in the millennia since. 40,000 years had passed since the last human voice had been heard beyond the stars. To most species, humans were a cautionary tale, a species that had burned too bright, too fast, and vanished into silence. But silence, as the old saying went, was never the same as absence. The cruiser appeared without warning. It slipped into normal space along the edge of the Litheron expanse, a region of space known for swallowing fleets whole. The ship was enormous, sleek, black, and wrung against the stars, its edges bending light like a shadow torn out of reality itself. The vessel did not broadcast identification codes, did not announce its allegiance, did not respond to hails. It simply drifted. Silent. Watching. On the bridge of the Coalition survey vessel Aurora's Reach, Commander Elias Ward stood frozen before the viewport. His crew whispered behind him, voices trembling with awe and unease. Elias was a man of measured calm, broad-shouldered, sharp-eyed, his uniform worn with the quiet authority of 20 years in service. But even he felt the shiver crawl up his spine. "God help me," he murmured. "That's a human design." The words rippled through the crew like thunder. Humans. The word itself felt forbidden. Ensign Mara Cade's hands tightened around the console edge, her knuckles pale. "Sir, that can't be possible. Humanity's been gone for 40,000 years," Elias finished grimly. His gaze never left the phantom cruiser. Yes. And yet here it is. The Coalition vessel had intercepted strange energy signatures, pulses of power older than any known civilization, and followed them to this place. No one had expected to find a ghost. The ship was vast, larger than any modern dreadnought, its hull etched with lines that seemed to shift when one stared too long. It wasn't just metal, it looked alive, as though it had been built from some dark alloy that remembered every war it had ever fought. Then, for the first time in millennia, it moved. A flicker of light traced along its hull like a heartbeat awakening. The Aurora's Reach shuddered as sensors lit with data they could not understand. Whatever this ship was, it was older than the stars around them, and it was waking. "Open a channel," Elias ordered, his voice steady, though his heart pounded like a war drum. The communications officer hesitated, then nodded. "Channel open, sir." Elias leaned forward, speaking into the void. "Unknown vessel, this is Commander Elias Ward of the Coalition starship Aurora's Reach. You are in secured space. Identify yourself." For a moment, there was only static. Then, a voice. It wasn't alien. It wasn't synthetic. It was unmistakably human. "This is Captain Jonathan Hale, commanding officer of the United Earth Cruiser Phantom." "Who the hell are you?" The bridge fell into stunned silence. Mara's lips parted, disbelief painted across her face. "Sir," he said, "United Earth. That government hasn't existed in—" "I know," Elias whispered. The voice returned, sharper this time. "Coalition vessel, respond. Where is Earth? Where are the colonies?" Elias swallowed hard, realizing the impossible truth. This ship, this crew, they didn't know. They didn't know that their people had been gone for 40 millennia. He steadied his voice, though his hands trembled. "Captain Hale, you've been gone a long time." The line crackled with tension. "Define a long time, Commander." Elias closed his eyes for a brief, painful moment before answering. 40,000 years. The silence that followed was suffocating. The crew of the Aurora's Reach shifted uneasily, listening to the weight of history collapsing in real time. When Hale spoke again, his voice was low, strained, and filled with a quiet fire. "Then it seems, humanity has returned. The Coalition ordered the Aurora's Reach to maintain observation while reinforcements gathered. But in truth, no one wanted to approach the Phantom too closely. Fear spread quickly among the local systems, whispers that the humans had come back, that their legends of terrible power were not myths after all. On the bridge, Mara found her commander alone, staring out at the looming shadow of the human warship. They're going to panic, aren't they? She said softly. Elias nodded. Every species in the galaxy has a story about the humans. Some fear them. Some worship them. Some blame them for wars they never fought. But all of them believed the humans were gone forever. And now they're not, Mara whispered. No, Elias said. His jaw tightened. Now they've come back in a ship that looks like death itself. The Phantom stirred again, energy rippling across its hull like storms on an endless sea. But what struck Elias most wasn't the threat it represented, it was the voice of Captain Jonathan Hale. A voice out of time. A man who believed Earth still stood, whose people had not yet known extinction. There was pain in that realization. And something else Elias could not name. Hope. Because if one ship had survived, perhaps humanity had not vanished at all. The first chapter ends here, on the razor's edge of revelation. The Phantom had returned. And the galaxy was about to remember why humanity's silence had lasted so long. The Phantom was not a relic. Despite drifting for 40,000 years, its systems thrummed with power like a beating heart. It was no derelict ghost, but a predator in slumber, awake now, and aware. Commander Elias Ward had been ordered to hold position and await further instructions, but every instinct in him screamed that history was being written in front of his eyes. The coalition's bureaucrats could debate, his crew could only watch. On the other side of the calms, Captain Jonathan Hale paced the bridge of his cruiser, a man fighting to reconcile the impossible. His officers, still alive after eons locked in stasis, gathered around him. They were Americans, Europeans, Asians, faces drawn from the old world before humanity had fractured into dust. Men and women who had once believed they were part of an empire that spanned stars. Lieutenant Sarah Whitaker leaned forward at her station, her green eyes wide. Captain, the coalition vessel, if what they say is true, Earth has been gone for 40,000 years. Impossible, Hale snapped, though his voice lacked conviction. He turned to his science officer, Dr. Michael Reyes. Run the star maps again. Compare galactic drift, stellar decay, planetary positions. Tell me this isn't real. Reyes's hands trembled as he worked, feeding data into consoles that hummed with ancient power. A moment later, the results appeared across the bridge. His voice broke when he spoke. Captain, the commander wasn't lying. 40 millennia. The constellations themselves have changed. The bridge fell into silence. They had left on a mission of exploration, venturing deep into the unknown for United Earth. They had expected to return to colonies thriving, to a people proud and strong. Instead, they had outlived everything they knew. Hale's fists clenched at his sides. Then we are the last. No, sir, Sarah whispered. We're the first. We've come back. Across the void, aboard the Aurora's Reach, Elias Ward read the incoming transmissions. His heart ached at the human crew's struggle, their grief was palpable even across the cold distance of space. He could almost see them, men and women realizing their families, their homes, their entire species had turned to dust before they could say goodbye. Ensign Mara Cade turned from her console. Sir, their systems, they're beyond anything we've ever seen. I think they're reading us as easily as we're reading them. Of course they are, Elias said softly. These are humans. Everything we built came from their ashes. The words carried weight. The coalition itself had risen from the scattered remnants of civilizations that had filled the void left by humanity's disappearance. And now the creators had returned. But the news was spreading too quickly. Already, nearby systems were in uproar. Coalition intelligence reports flooded in, panic riots on Carthos, weapons factories doubling shifts on Shari, priests on Verith proclaiming the return of the Firebringers. Every race remembered their own version of human myth. To some, they were gods. To others, devils. And the Phantom had just made them real again. Back aboard the Phantom, Hale stood before the massive forward viewport, staring into the infinite dark. His reflection gazed back at him, a man out of time, wearing the old uniform of United Earth Fleet. Captain. Dr. Reyes's voice was gentle, but urgent. We have to consider the implications. If humanity is gone, then our mission changes. We are no longer explorers. We are the last living testament of our species. Sarah stepped forward. We should demand answers from these coalition officers. If there's even a chance that survivors exist somewhere. Hale raised a hand, silencing them. His voice was low, but steady. We will learn the truth. But not as beggars. He turned, fire kindling in his eyes. We are the United Earth Fleet. And if the galaxy has forgotten what that means, we will remind them. His officers straightened, the old pride rising despite the centuries that had passed. Coalition High Command convened in orbit of Vera Prime, their council chambers buzzing with alarm. Messages poured in from every sector, half demanding reassurance, half calling for war readiness. And at the center of every message was the same name, humanity. Some wanted the Phantom destroyed before it could act. Others whispered of alliances, of begging the humans for protection. No one could agree except on one truth. The galaxy would never be the same. On the bridge of the Aurora's Reach, Elias received his orders. Commander Ward, you are to maintain communication with the human vessel but under no circumstances provoke them. Reinforcements are en route. Do not allow them to leave your sight. He closed the channel, jaw tight. Reinforcements. He knew what that meant, containment. Fear disguised as control. Mara spoke softly beside him. Sir, do you think they'll comply? Elias's gaze drifted back to the looming shadow of the Phantom, its hull rippling with unearthly power. He thought of Captain Hale's voice, steady, proud, unyielding. No, Elias whispered. I don't think compliance is in their nature. On the Phantom's bridge, alarms flickered as the coalition fleet signatures spiked on sensors. Dozens of warships were burning toward them, weapons primed, engines flaring like distant fireflies. Sarah Whitaker's face hardened. Captain, they're not here to escort us. They're here to cage us. Hale's lips curved into something between a smile and a snarl. Then they've made their first mistake. His hand lowered to the console before him. Systems hummed to life, weapons arrays glowing faintly along the Phantom's hull. The ancient cruiser, 40,000 years adrift, was ready to fight again. Transmit this to the coalition fleet, Hale ordered. His voice was iron. Tell them humanity does not bow. Not then. Not now. Not ever. The silence of 40 millennia had ended. And the galaxy trembled. The coalition fleet descended like a storm. Dozens of warships surrounded the Phantom in a tightening net, weapons armed, their hulls gleaming with modern precision. By comparison, the Phantom seemed almost ancient, its black surface etched with shifting lines of light, its shadow bending the void itself. Yet none of the coalition ships dared to fire first. Because everyone remembered the myths. On the Aurora's Reach, Commander Elias Ward gripped the rail before the forward viewport. His crew sat rigid at their stations, the air thick with dread. They're going to force this into a fight, Ensign Mara Cade whispered. Elias's jaw tightened. And if they do, they'll learn very quickly why humans became legend. Across the void, the Phantom stirred. Captain Jonathan Hale stood tall at the center of his bridge. His officers flanked him, their expressions grim but resolute. Lieutenant Sarah Whitaker's hands hovered over the weapons console, but Hale lifted his hand, stopping her. Not yet, he said. The comms crackled alive. A coalition admiral's voice filled the bridge, clipped and cold. Unknown human vessel. You are to stand down immediately. Disengage your weapons and prepare for boarding. Non-compliance will be considered an act of war. Hale's eyes narrowed. He gestured to open the channel. His voice carried like a blade. Admiral, you speak as though you have a choice. But you forget whose skies you breathe. We are humanity. We do not yield. The silence that followed was suffocating. Then, the Admiral answered with the only thing left to him. All ships, prepare to fire. Inside the Phantom, systems awoke fully for the first time in millennia. Energy bled across its hull like rivers of starlight. Weapons arrays ignited with a low, hungry hum. The cruiser was not simply advanced, it was alive, its very frame designed to outthink, outfight, and outlast anything the galaxy could throw at it. Sarah's voice rang across the bridge. "Target locks incoming, Captain. They're going to unleash everything." Hale stood unshaken, his voice steady. "Then let them witness." Outside, the coalition unleashed its fury. Missiles streaked through the void, plasma beams lanced across the darkness, and kinetic rounds thundered like meteors. For a moment, it seemed as though the heavens themselves had turned against the Phantom. But the ship did not burn. The Phantom's hull shimmered, absorbing and twisting the incoming fire into nothing. Explosions rippled harmlessly against its surface, their brilliance swallowed whole. Then the Phantom struck back. A single pulse of light erupted from its prow, silent, blinding. It did not shatter ships with brute force. Instead, every coalition vessel in its path went dark at once. Engines failed, weapons fell silent, shields flickered and collapsed. Dozens of ships drifted, powerless, like toys cast aside. Gasps filled the Aurora's reach. Mara's voice broke the silence, awe in every syllable. That wasn't an attack. That was mercy." Elias nodded grimly. "He's proving a point." On the Phantom, Hale's officers stared at the displays, stunned. Sarah whispered, "We could have destroyed them all." Hale's expression was unreadable. And what would that have achieved? Humanity returns not as butchers, but as masters. He turned, his gaze piercing the stars. "Transmit this message. To every channel. Every world. Every system within reach." Sarah hesitated only a moment before nodding. Hale stepped forward, his presence filling the bridge. His voice, carried on frequencies across the galaxy, was deep, steady, and unyielding. For 40,000 years, humanity was silent. The galaxy believed us dead. You built your empires in our absence. You told stories to frighten your children. You forgot the truth. His eyes narrowed. We are not dead. We are not broken. We are not forgotten. We have returned. Across hundreds of systems, leaders froze in their chambers. Soldiers stilled at their posts. Civilians crowded around holoscreens. Every species, every world, every soul listened. We are humanity. We were the first to walk the stars. We endured what you could not imagine. And now we return, not to beg, but to remind you, the galaxy was never yours. It was only waiting. His final words rolled like thunder. Humanity commands the stars again. The effect was instantaneous. Panic riots broke out across coalition worlds. Armies scrambled, leaders screamed into calms demanding responses that did not exist. Religious sects fell to their knees, proclaiming the Firebringers had returned. But on the Aurora's reach, Elias Ward felt something else. Hope. He watched the Phantom loom across the viewport, proud and terrible, and he whispered, maybe this is what the galaxy needed all along. To remember who lit the way. Mara turned to him, eyes wide. Do you think they'll conquer us? Elias shook his head slowly. No. They don't need to. Humanity already won the moment they returned. On the Phantom, Captain Hale let the silence stretch after his speech. His officers stood tall, the weight of history settling upon their shoulders. Dr. Reyes finally broke the stillness. Captain, what now? Hale's gaze softened, if only for a moment. He looked out at the sea of stars, at the galaxy that had forgotten his people, and would never forget again. Now, he said quietly, we remind them not of what we were, but of what we will become. The Phantom's engines flared, a storm of light tearing through the void. And as the galaxy trembled, humanity's silence ended forever.